Ladies and gentlemen, feds and degenerates, cuckolds of all ages. Oh, there's my alarm. Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, feds and degenerates, cuckolds of all ages, it's Miles Culture Plate. I'm your host, Mild Kevin Miles, and usually I try to start the show off with a lot more energy, but I'm pretty sure 100%, if not, if not 100% of you folks know, there's been some pretty crazy news today. And we'll go ahead and just, I guess, start off the show with that. We, I tend, when there's a pretty big celebrity death, I tend to start off the show by sort of reading a news story covering that person's life. I'm not going to do that this time around. And this is going to take up most of the show. We've got 2 hours starting now, and I've got a lot of feelings. I've got a lot of emotions. I've got a lot of analysis. I've got a lot of reaction in me to things that are happening now across the internet, across social media, and across real life, just real life. And so I want to obviously start off the show by making sure that if you folks at home are not aware, conservative commentator Charlie Kirk has been assassinated at the age of 31 while doing his usual public debate um, in a huge crowd of people. An assassin with a gun has decided to play God and just decide that Charlie Kirk did not deserve to live. Um, so if by any chance anyone in my audience or anyone who's randomly clicking on this video, if there's any chance you're not aware of Charlie Kirk, we've watched quite a few Charlie Kirk videos on this show. Charlie Kirk was a staple across the internet, a staple in conservative communities, pretty big at conservative events, always a live speaker, always speaking in front of crowds. Um, but more importantly, he was always willing to debate the conservative point of view, always willing to debate the Christian point of view. And even myself, I had disagreements with him. I didn't always agree with how he did things or where he did things or, who he debated with and how. And I didn't agree necessarily with 100% of his political positions. But that's the kicker, right? That's the point of a guy like Charlie Kirk is you don't have to agree with him. Have a conversation about it. And man, this honestly has hit me harder than a lot of other celebrity deaths. And look, I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I wasn't necessarily a fan of Charlie Kirk. But as you can see from the stream title, this is the shot heard around the conservative world. And so far, no one else on the internet has captioned the way I'm feeling more accurately than Milo Yiannopoulos. Go ahead and bring up Milo Yiannopoulos because this is important. Milo says, let it be remembered that we tried debate first, and this is what happened. Now, look, I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse here because I'm showing this Milo tweet because I want you folks to know where I'm going to be at the end of this very long program, this very long rant, this very long philosophical. I should turn the lights off and make this a Patriot Philosopher stream, because that's really what this is going to be. This is going to be probably a long time of me just rambling on and on about how I feel about this day and my analysis of what we're seeing in media, in social media, and in the reaction. Because let's face it, Charlie Kirk is one life. It's one voice. We are a nation of millions, but one life matters. One event matters. One shocking thing happening in front of us all, and seeing the ways in which our fellow brothers and sisters, our fellow countrymen and patriots act and react to overt acts of violence is what can make or break our nation moving forward. Now, again, I had my criticisms of Charlie Kirk, but let's be honest. Can we list the crimes? Can we list the sins of Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk was guilty of being MAGA. Charlie Kirk was guilty of holding Christian beliefs. Charlie Kirk was guilty of holding conservative beliefs. Now, if you're 80% of America, that's not a crime. It's not a crime deserving of having his life interfered with in any way. It's not a crime worthy of jail time, imprisonment. It's not a crime worthy of even light violence. But let's face it, there's a 20% out there. There's a vocal minority of Americans who are very vocal across the internet and are making themselves very vocal right now. Whose idea of a balanced warfare, and I want to be very careful using terms like this: warfare, political warfare. They will sit there behind their keyboards or behind their cameras and do everything in their power to make you believe that words are violence and beliefs are violence. That simply the failure to acknowledge the gender confusion of young people is akin to tying them up and sentencing them to death. Words are violence to them. Meanwhile, when an event like what happened today, when an event like what happened today happens, there's no reflection. There's no understanding. There's no shocking these people. There's no humanity in them seeing what they have just seen and processing it for what it was. And that is simply a man who came to Utah to have conversations with people. a nonviolent act. And someone responded in the most gruesome, the most violent, the most final way possible, and left 2 children without a father and a wife without a husband. And there are a lot of emotions I'm processing about that. But let me just start off by saying, late night ramblings in the chat over on Rumble. Cheers to you. And I don't want you to think I forgot about my boy Sanglant. Cheers to you, my friend. Good seeing you both in the chat. Let's get a couple sound effects going. See, it's hard for me to do this morning show goofy shit. I mean, what I mean, I guess I'll try to play my 2 least goofy ones here.
Lord, it's a damn shame.
Lord, it's a damn shame. And then the sad violin. All right. So again, I struggle to find the words. I'm just kind of shooting from the hip. And I said I want to be careful about using words like warfare because that's how we get into this mess. You know, we've had Tim Pool shouting from the rafters about civil war for quite some time. And let's be honest, Milo's right. Charlie Kirk was the embodiment of conservatives being nonviolent and turning to debate. Charlie Kirk didn't readily cite very many written works that were about warfare and about political violence. No, he showed up to college campuses. He invited young people, challenged them to bring him facts and information, challenged them to bring him philosophy and morals, and have an exchange. I'm not saying those exchanges were always fair or that he was always noble. But it was never supposed to end in violence. Not one time did Charlie Kirk get up from his desk or from behind his microphone that I'm aware of, run out into the crowd and start throwing haymakers. Not one time did he pull a gun and start firing into the audience. Charlie Kirk was one of the only ones of us whose convictions were symbolic of all the ways in which we conservatives and Americans say that's how political discourse is supposed to go. He was literally the embodiment of that's exactly how these conversations are supposed to go. So what do we do now? This coming at literally the height of, and I hate to use the word fatigue, because so many people in the last week, uh, since the death of Irina Irutska, is that her name? Fuck, I've always had issues with her last name. Irina Irutska, I believe her name was. The young lady who was murdered on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina. Conservatives for the last week have been boiling over with anger, frustration, a feeling like the rest of society is just brushing our pain away. And then this happens. It's pretty hard to continue to be one of the voices advocating for peace, but that's what I do. I advocate for peace because, much like the owner of a retarded dog that keeps biting its owner, right? And my dog's fine. This isn't me now. But imagine being a dog owner and the dog keeps biting you, but the dog don't know any better. It's a retarded dog. You still got to feed it. You still got to give it love. But every once in a while it gets just a little too playful and thinks you're a chew toy. Bites you a little too hard. Or a cat that scratches you. The cat's too dumb to realize what happened. You still got to feed the cat. You still got to love the cat. I look at the way leftists act and react. And we as conservatives, we never fear them. And that's part of the narrative, right? Is when stuff like this happens, the leftists are like, well, Charlie Kirk was dangerous. Something had to be done. Right? They act like they are afraid of us. And we never, ever show these people fear. And we shouldn't. Just like you shouldn't be afraid of your cat. You shouldn't respond to getting scratched by throwing the cat against the wall as hard as you can and trying to hurt the cat. The cat is just retarded and doesn't know any better. Now, the life of a conservative influencer, the life of one of the most peaceful conservative influencers out there, is a little more serious than getting scratched by a cat. But also, we need to pin the blame exactly where it belongs. Apparently, we had a crazy person show up to this campus in Utah with a weapon meant for defense, with a weapon meant, designed, created, and sold with the idea that it would be used in a defensive capacity. And that person, whether having a heart filled with hate or a mind filled with madness, did what nobody else could, should, would do. And we have to be careful not to react with the same heart filled with hate or the same mind filled with madness that this person reacted. To escalate, to escalate this quote unquote civil war to the next hot fire is not a good idea. Because this battle will show you which Americans are ready to fight. This battle will show you which Americans you should fear and what the leftists have in their pocket. Now, again, I'm not MAGA. I'm not super right wing. I'm not super Trump supporter. I'm not Turning Point USA. I'm just a guy in the Midwest with a camera and a microphone and some ideas about the way society is going. And after the murder of Irina Irutska, I've been feeling real uneasy. But I also have to remember that this is one news story that has gotten a lot of attention. Now, granted, there are a lot of news stories just like that who haven't got enough attention. A lot of people who've been murdered, a lot of acts of violence that hasn't had as much much attention as it should have had. And so there's part of me that's like, you should be more afraid of your fellow American. And then there's another part of me that says no. Because the more upset we are at each other, the more divided we are at each other, the more at risk we are to make the fatal flaw. Hang on, let me do something because the last I heard before I went live, there like there I'd heard there was a suspect and then there wasn't a suspect and then I heard there was another suspect and now I'm seeing reports that that may be a wrong suspect. Okay, Cash Patel has now tweeted that there's a suspect. The suspect for the horrific shooting today that took the life of Charlie Kirk is now in custody. Thank you to the local state authorities in Utah for your partnership with the FBI. We will provide updates when able. I want to get their name. Now, we're not going to get the name probably until their social media has been either scrubbed or cherry picked. Now, there are already a lot of conspiracy theorists out there who said, maybe this wasn't leftist violence. Maybe this was deep state. Maybe this was intelligence agencies for a certain nation in the Middle East who had issues with the direction that Turning Point was going with some of the debates they've been hosting lately. I don't think this is the time for that. I could be wrong. And maybe this is exactly the time for that. We want to make sure we get the right guy. And I think we already know that our federal government has certain aspects to it that are compromised. So I don't know that we're going to get justice for the death of Charlie Kirk, but I hope we do. I hope they get the guy. I hope it's the right guy. And I hope somehow, some way, some shape, some form, we find out exactly what this person's motive is. Because right now, everything I've said today in this live stream, I've been live for 20 minutes, 25 minutes now, almost 30. If you count my theme song. I've been live for almost 30 minutes if you count my theme song. But I've been talking about this for 25 minutes now. And all of it's speculation as to motive. Because why would you shoot? Why would you assassinate Charlie Kirk at a public university at a public event? Now, again, it could be deep state or foreign intelligence, but 99% of people, the only reason you would have to want to see Charlie Kirk dead is you literally just don't like his politics. I mean, I guess there could be a disgruntled former employee at Turning Point USA. I guess there could be someone he did shady dealings with in the past. All of these things are a possibility. But like I said, 99.9% of people out there, anyone who would have anything negative to say or feel about Charlie Kirk is directly related to the ways in which he would debate the left wing very publicly about their morals, their beliefs, their philosophy, and make them feel silly. He literally made these people feel silly for believing down in their core some of the most vile beliefs that the far left espouses. And when you shake that many people out of their core convictions, it causes a lot of people to be emotional. Now, the early reports we got after the shooting, and there's very graphic video going around Twitter and other X, excuse me, going around X. I always dead name X, but very very gruesome videos happening around the internet. Uh, I I I literally watched the video, and I could tell from the video that it it wasn't looking good. The earlier reports came in that he had been rushed to a hospital. There was really some silence for a long time. A few more less reputable news outlets reported that he was indeed passed away. And then news came down from the Turning Point USA and Turning Point UK camp that he was still alive, that doctors were doing their best to save him. The gruesome video showed the bullet, the close up. There were two videos, one kind of from far away that just showed him slump over, another one showed very graphically kind of him jolting from the nerves of being struck. At the same time, blood started spewing from his neck. Very gruesome, very very graphic, very disgusting. And I'm sorry if anyone got nauseous from that description. Videos out there, but I wouldn't advise you to go look at it. It's very gruesome, very horrible, and it's very disturbing. Unfortunately, it was literally every other post on my feed for about an hour on X. As I went to X literally just to look for news topics that I could cover on my show tonight, and unfortunately, I got one that undid the notion that I would talk about literally anything else on the show tonight. And so I do want to take a moment. The reason I'm mentioning all this, I do want to take a moment because in the fog of news, everyone wants to be the first. So we had all of these quote unquote conservative news outlets who saw how gruesome the video was. Or sources, trust me, bro, I know a guy who lives close to Utah who knows somebody, and yeah, dude, trust me, bro, he's totally dead. They all rushed to be the first one to post on X that Charlie Kirk was dead, when he was still in the hospital fighting for his life, when several million of us were still praying that he would bounce back. The doctors would be able to repair the artery in his neck and get his blood pressure back up and get the blood flowing to his brain again. We were all praying that he would make it because, dear God, seeing the video makes your heart sink, thinking, oh my God, like it's a miracle if he's still alive. A literal fucking miracle. God has granted this guy a chance. Maybe he's got a chance if God is with him. For so many alleged conservatives or alleged Christians or alleged humans and don't get me wrong, I myself, I maybe I'm guilty of this too by even going live right now. But you know, the show must go on, and right now, this is all I've got to talk about. I'm not trying to grift off of the death of this man. I assure you of that. I have socially relevant feelings about the state of politics. I don't want your money. I don't necessarily need Rumble premium money from this either. You folks know, if you've been following the show for any period of time, I'm going to go live and talk about my feelings on this stream Wednesdays and Saturdays whenever I can, whether or not someone has passed away or not. So this isn't a grift for money. But these motherfuckers, these alleged conservatives, these alleged news people, these alleged political figures to go on X and claim that Charlie Kirk had died an hour, 2 hours before doctors were ready to give up on him. You fuckers are vultures. And I hope you're exposed. I hope you apologize. And then I hope you deactivate your social media and never enter the conservative sphere again. Because while the rest of us were praying and hoping and waiting with bated breath, you made an assumption, put it out into the universe, and then it happened. You were praying that you were going to be right while we were praying for the man's life. And for that, fuck you. So yeah, suspect in custody, and you know, can I just take a minute while I'm denouncing violence, while I'm advocating for peace, If this is indeed the correct suspect and we get the motive and we find out it's exactly what we think, hopefully everything's on the up and up. Does Utah have the death penalty? Grok, does Utah? Yeah, Utah does have the death penalty. Hey, I think we all need to appeal to the Supreme Court to make sure that this literally should be a public hanging televised on C-SPAN. I mean, Eighth Amendment be damned. I honestly, this individual deserves nothing less. Literally nothing less. I mean, he chose to carry out his act in front of a crowd of people, knowing that this event was being filmed by several cameras. This guy, like, apparently, and I say guy, could be a woman. This individual, this insane individual, carried out this act with the perversion that it would be seen by millions. And while normally my gut reaction is, you know what, don't say their name. You know, we also today had a school shooting in Colorado. And I'm not going to give it much airspace. Another individual who deserves the worst things to happen to them. I'm assuming I haven't looked enough into that story because everything else going on has made Twitter hard to read. Maybe I ought to dig into that before the end of the show. Please, somebody out there, remind me to dig into the school shooting around, an hour from now. But every time something like that happens, I've lost my damn train of thought. Yeah, every time something like that happens, we don't want to give the shooter fame. Sangline says it's almost time for never let their dead names be forgotten, just like Ray Epps. You don't want to give them the fame, but at the same time, we need to string these people up in public. We need to give them a public execution. I never thought I would utter those words because I've always been against the death penalty. But I've altered that in my older age. I do feel the death penalty is important, but it should be reserved for the most horrific and most public acts, the most indecent acts people could do. Very public murders of children. The bastard who stabbed the Ukrainian woman on the train in Charlotte. Sure, you committed your act in public. You committed a public execution. If you commit a public execution, I think it's only fair. Now, oh fuck, man. This is so deep. This is so heavy on me. Because the last thing I want to do is sit here and talk about, well, it's war now, right? It's war now. But while I sit and talk about peace, there are leftists across the internet saying, no, this is what we're doing now. This is good, wholesome political reaction. This is how it's gonna be. I don't think they realize what they're asking for. These motherfuckers have spent the last 2 years saying, oh, Donald Trump is Hitler, MAGA is literally Nazis, and, really longer than 2 years. But the last 2 years, it's kind of really been their, like, they know they're saying it disingenuously. And this is where I get back to what I was saying earlier, is they claim to fear us. We show no fear of them, but they claim to fear us. They claim we're this big boogeyman. They claim conservatives, libertarians, and that we're all trying to kill people. That we're all these dangerous networks, right? And don't get me wrong. There's some right wingers out there who can do some damage. There's some misguided individuals of all political stripes, and there are extremists of all political stripes. But whenever someone on the right loses their fucking mind or loses their fucking heart and does something kind of like what we saw today, which is very rare, immediately 99% of conservatives get on social media and say, hey, man, my prayers for the victims and justice for the accused. They do not represent conservative values. Yeah, Sanglane, if the deer hunters as a group want you dead, that's already done. And that's the scary part here, man. That's the scary part, because conservatives literally want to be left alone. The majority of conservatives, all we fucking want is to be left the fuck alone. And you didn't leave us alone. You didn't leave our children alone. You want to make our children transgender. You want to make our women have abortions. And as a response, you got Charlie Kirk. As a response to you wanting to destroy our families, we give you Charlie Kirk. Someone who literally just, this is why we're peaceful. This is why abortion's bad. This is why the mental illness that enables transgenderism is anti-Christian, anti-family. Someone who literally will just get up there and tell you the philosophy and the data behind it. And that's war to you folks. Literally. Don't harass any of the people I'm about to mention. Well, we're going to play a couple clips here. Where is, do I not have the MSNBC clip? I swear I bookmarked it. What the fuck? Sure, all I got to do is type in MSNBC here. Yep, here we go. No, not that. Where did it go? I swear I saved the clip of Matthew Dowd. Okay, that's a 27-second clip. I swear there was a longer one. Is this it? No, 25 seconds. I bookmarked a bunch of shit over and over again earlier. Okay, so there I guess are 3 clips going around of MSNBC. Let's go ahead and break them down one by one. And this is basically Matthew Dowd Hey, Rusty Rivers, cheers and welcome. Oh, he said projection, brother, earlier, and I missed it. Yeah, projection. Confession by projection, as good old Viva Frey would say. And you gotta, pardon me, my brain's not foggy. Cheers. So cheers to Rusty Rivers. Good seeing you. Okay.
Which a shooting like this happens.
Okay, so we got all these clips from MSNBC, and let's get into some of them because I think it's important we address some of the claims made here.
Talk to me about the environment in which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. We don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about this. But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Now, you want to talk about projection there, Rusty Rivers. I put this out there and understand I am calling for peace. I literally do not want to see anything happen to Matthew Dowd. Maybe lose his spot on MSNBC. But other than that, no, I want you to live a healthy, peaceful life. I want you to continue to have gainful employment, maybe as a door greeter at Walmart or something. I want you to be able to feed your family. And I want you to know, I want peace for Matthew Dowd. And there are other individuals I'm going to bring up. I want peace for those people. I want them to find it in their heart. I want them to see how angry conservatives are in this moment. I want them to see how angry Americans are in this moment, that we are being divided to the point where people are bringing guns to political rallies and committing these acts. And he says, well, the speech leads to hate, leads to violence. Well, that street works two ways, Matthew Dowd. You could be using this moment to call for peace. Instead, you're saying this is the political climate. Nay, this is not the political climate. This is not what we want for America. We are fucking better than this. And if you're stating that these are the rules now, Matthew Dowd, are you ready to be at the opposite end of that? Are you ready to be the next Charlie Kirk? I want peace for you. But if you're saying that these are the new fucking rules, well, you just spoke hateful speech. Where do you think that leads? Peaceful conservatives with peace in our hearts say that leads to us boycotting MSNBC. That leads to us saying we don't want to see you on our television sets. That leads to us saying, dear God, old man, I hope you fucking wallow in irrelevance, because that's where you're headed with a heart like that. But you say these are the rules. What do you expect is going to happen to you? I fucking hope nothing. Dear God, I fucking hope nothing. Please leave this man alone. Demon's Wrath. I'm in class at the moment. Dropped in to show y'all some love. Things are fucked up right now. Keep your powder dry. Cheers and welcome, man. Yes, please keep your weapons clean. Keep your weapons dry. The ones you didn't accidentally drop in the lake, that is. Maintain the ability to defend yourself because, quite frankly, you have people saying that this is it now. You have conservatives saying that this is it now. We're now in a hot war. No, we're not. Charlie Kirk was a huge loss to this world. And we have every right to be angry. We have every right to say this is bullshit. We have every right to say it's time to take the individual responsible and string them up in the town square. What we don't have a right to say is let's cut America apart. But understand, far leftists, crazy far leftists, you're on notice that if you're saying that these are the new rules, like Sanglance said earlier, you want the deer hunters. You want the people you've been calling literal Nazis. If we were Nazis, you would all be in boxcars already. And that's an insensitive thing for me to say. And, I apologize if some of you folks are Jewish or whatever, and that makes you feel uneasy. I'm talking about the current political climate and the divide in America right now. I'm not talking about race politics. If we were half the fascist that liberals claim to want us to be, we wouldn't stand for this shit on our televisions. This wouldn't be on our televisions. And the orgy continues. The fappening continues where
Alan, after
here you go. You want proof? You want to hear exactly what I just said come out of the mouth of the far left? They also aired this on MSNBC.
Because as we were just talking about a moment ago with Alan, after one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as a justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
I must admit, I'm at a loss to guess as to what happens next. But Kirk,
because
what happens next is that if you folks keep fear mongering, you're going to get exactly what you're calling for. I mean, that's the issue. Is you motherfuckers in the mainstream media, the same way you were poking the bear leading up to the Iraq war. And by the way, I didn't give Demon's Wrath a sound effect. My bad.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
You motherfuckers in the mainstream media, the same way you beat the war drums going into Iraq with your lies about imminent weapons of mass destruction in America going to be under attack unless we take action now. We got Shoban over on YouTube. Oh my God, did you start early? No, 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock Central, 6 Eastern is the new start time for the show. Cheers and welcome. It's not early. I was on time. It's now a 2-hour program instead of an hour program starting at 6 p.m. and then usually running over to 7. But, running past 7:00. Now it's 5:00 and stopping right at 7. So yeah, my what do you call it? My schedule has changed a little bit. So still waiting for a few more people to come in before I could do an ad read, which I don't want to fucking do an ad read, but unfortunately, and to stay in the Rumble Creative Program, I got to squeeze 5 of them in before the end of the month. So that's where we're at now. But yeah, you motherfuckers in the mainstream media, you beat the war drums, and you're beating the war drums again with more lies, with more projection, with more, creating these scenarios in your head about what's going to happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's literally a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when you do that, you poke the bear. And, it's these type of actions that make people excuse acts of fascism and totalitarianism. Do you think us conservatives and us libertarians want to applaud federal troops on the streets of Washington, D.C.? Do you think we want to applaud for that? No. I don't think you do think we want to applaud for that. Which is why you act shocked and act like it's absurd and act like it's fascism. But eventually, you fuck things up enough, something has to be done. Eventually, your violence has to be responded to. And when I say your violence, understand, I don't directly blame everyone on the far left for every action of every junkie on the streets of Washington, D.C. But when you try to arrest those junkies and we get told all cops are bastards and we need sentence reform and bail reform, and if you prosecute the junkie, that means you're a racist, and so therefore we got to let the junkie back out on the street 14 times to assault people until he stabs a woman in the neck on the damn train. And then we have no choice left but to applaud fascism because of the world you created with your let's be compassionate to everyone except bullies. Murder, okay. Guy who might have used the N-word in his car while singing a rap song, or God forbid, I saw yet another thread today about how bad it was that Robert Downey Jr. mocked blackface in Tropic Thunder. We're supposed to be so concerned with every minor act of racism and homophobia and sexism that, that's literal violence, and you ignore the murderers on our street and then expect us not to applaud fascism when fascism finally flips the script and puts murderers in jail or on planes back to the countries they came from. And I'm jokingly using the word fascism because I think a lot of this shit that Donald Trump is doing. Let me go back into the chat a little bit. I think a lot of the things Donald Trump's doing is within his legal rights, and I don't think it's necessarily fascism. And I think at some point you do, if you're fucking paying taxes, you do have to utilize those taxes to clean up your community. I think that's part of the social contract that you motherfuckers on the left talk about when you talk about our social contract and, you know, taxes are the prices we pay to live in a civilized society. Yeah, okay. Well, there you go. Tax is the price I'm paying. I demand a civilized society. Come on in and do it. Oh, so let's go back in the chat a little bit. Sanglant said, personally, I'm back to praying the Psalms. May God smile every last one of his enemies. I do not claim, or smite every last one of his enemies. I do not claim to know who that is, but it is overdue from here at least. Showbound says, yep, this is all planned, mentioned already in the past, unreal. And Sanglant, don't waste fuel landing or parachutes, tuck and roll. Agreed. If you've been found to have committed violent crimes in the United States and you're here on some immigrant visa or you're here on illegally or here on refugee status, yeah, fuck that. Yeah, just take them over the Pacific and just drop them somewhere. I don't care. And there's the ongoing joke in libertarian communities after a fair trial. Of course, no. If your whole argument is I'm an immigrant and I'm here, yeah. If we could prove, I mean, you don't need a trial if you could just say, hey, yeah, no, they're here and they did it. That's all the trial I need. You don't get the Sixth Amendment. You don't get the fair trial jury of your peers because we're not your peers. You don't have peers here. But while you had so many conservatives today lamenting the death of Charlie Kirk before he even passed away, Glenn Beck went on the Megyn Kelly show and just described a little bit.
I just read your tweet to the audience. Are you hearing that from people who are in a position to know that Charlie
I am.
is in, that he's alive and that he's in critical?
I am. Spoke to somebody in a position who knows, who said he has a pulse. So that's good news. Good news.
Unfortunately, it's no longer good news, but
I have to tell you, Nate, my daughter was at the tent. She's 19 years old.
Oh, God.
And she's on her way home now. But this is
I just read your tweet to the audience.
So if the shooter would have kept firing, there was other staff of Turning Point there. There was Glenn Beck's daughter there. If the shooter had kept firing, I don't think my calls for peace would have mattered. I still don't know if they matter. But I wouldn't have even tried to call for peace at that point because, this clearly was God, like I said, I want to wake up tomorrow and this all be fake. I want to wake up tomorrow and which I'm sure, like right now, there are children in Gaza or children in Ukraine and that want to wake up tomorrow and all that be fake. I've lived my entire life in the relative peacefulness of 20th and 21st century United States, where we don't have hot wars here. We don't have to sleep next to our rifle. We don't have to dig trenches and for the most part we don't have to dig bomb shelters or fallout shelters. We so the prepared people have a lot of that ready and on hand, but not the majority of our country. In fact, that's half of the problem I have with the country right now is we're building condos. We've got condos. Yeah, they want you to live on the 12th floor. They want you to live on the 12th floor while violence is occurring and not have a safe fallout shelter or food rations. Hey, I'm just saying, it's pretty fucking easy. Pretty easy, as we've seen in Gaza, pretty easy to just level a large building. All right, what else do I have in my bookmarks? Again, don't harass any of the people who have pretty fucking hateful things to say. Got this individual here. Charlie Kirk's final words were a vicious conspiracy theory about transgender people being behind many of the mass shootings in America. They are not. This is a vicious lie. I mean, they are. They fucking are. This is the kind of thing we heard in 1930s Germany. Political violence is wrong. But don't forget his violent words when eulogizing this man. Literally. While saying political violence is wrong, and follows up. The moments before the shot rang out, someone who appears to be a student asked the Kirk if he knew how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years, speaking into a microphone. Too many, he replied. Person asked him to give the number of mass shooters in the U.S. Counting or not counting gang violence, Kirk said before lowering his microphone, and that's when he was shot. Again, this is what I mean. Kirk was trying to address exactly what I'm talking about on this stream as the bullet struck him. So this was the individual identified as the suspect immediately after the shooting, and this gentleman allegedly has since been confirmed to not be the shooter, even though here he is
Shoot me! Shoot me!
screaming, "Shoot me!"
We don't know if it's him or not.
And you have people screaming, "We don't know if it's him or not," but he's screaming, "Shoot me!" So clearly we've had at least two people out of their minds and hearts, out of their minds, out of their hearts at that rally in Utah today. Also in the conservative debate space is Andrew Wilson, who shared this post from liberal debate space juggernaut Destiny. It's a screenshot of the Wikipedia showing only the birthday, saying who's going to do it. basically mocking the fact that no one had officially declared him dead yet. Mocking death. Mocking death. Got Antelope Hill Publishing. The bullet fired at Charlie Kirk may have killed the moderate right. And says, we probably have a few more years to go before we start getting into the American years of lead, but the velocity is increasing. And then someone says, which, if you ask me, is exactly what the left wants, and then says, well, we didn't ask you. I mean, this is it. This is literally it.
Kirk's family and to Charlie Kirk.
Then the governor of Illinois. The governor of Illinois had this to say.
My sympathy to Charlie Kirk's family and to Charlie Kirk, who obviously has, become a target for somebody. I don't know whether it's political violence because I don't know who did it. I know they seem to have somebody in custody. But I will say that political violence, unfortunately, has been ratcheting up in this country. We saw the shootings, the killings in Minnesota. We've seen other political violence occur in other states. And I would just say it's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. We've seen the January 6th rioters who clearly, have tripped a new era of political violence. My sympathy to
you, motherfucker. Like, what he's saying is right. I can't say he's wrong, but to then say it all started with Donald Trump in January 6th. Oh, that's where it started, huh? It didn't start with Antifa versus the Proud Boys. It didn't start with Charlottesville. Now, you on the left like to bring up Charlottesville as proof that the right wing are so dangerous. And like that was the start of it. But you might also remember Charlottesville kicked off because Antifa started attacking the neo-Nazis first. So it didn't start with Antifa. It didn't start with, people having Trump derangement syndrome. It didn't start with incidents like what Kyle Rittenhouse found himself in. It wasn't that. It wasn't. It wasn't the guy who was murdered for being a Trump supporter in Denver, or the guy who was murdered for being a Trump supporter in Portland. And we covered those two stories on the show before. I could bring them up again if anyone needs me to, but feel free to go look those up. Guy in Denver shot by literal security for the local news. Murdered for being a Trump supporter. Security guard for the local news guy just kills him for being a Trump supporter and being too close. Guy wasn't armed. Guy wasn't being aggressive. Two people were having a shouting match. Security guy pulls out a gun, just shoots a guy. And then Portland. Conservatives are leaving an auditorium after hearing speakers Guy's walking to his car, walks into the parking garage. Guy comes out from around the corner with a gun, decides, first guy with a red hat, I'm going to cap his ass. And does it. And then proceeded to fuck around and find out the next day when cops raided his home. Yeah, it didn't start with any of that. No, it wasn't until Donald Trump and January 6th. That's when all political violence started, huh? JB Prickster? That's when the political violence escalated? That's when this started? Was January 6th. It wasn't any of the people who decided that Kyle Rittenhouse couldn't carry his AR-15 down the street. We better get that guy. Tried to snatch his gun, tried to beat him with a skateboard, and pointed a Glock at his head. All because he dared show up holding a self-defense armament in a community that people were burning down because they had a political opinion about the death of a man. Actually, no, he didn't even die, did he? No, he was put in a wheelchair. That's right. That was Wisconsin. Yeah, the political violence didn't start there. The political violence that has been echoing in our country for almost a decade now didn't start at any of those events. It didn't happen until January 6, 2021, when conservatives were upset. They went to the Capitol. They got rowdy. They went inside, pushed around some cops, took a shit on Nancy Pelosi's desk. And that's the worst thing that could have ever happened in our nation. But all of these other things I just mentioned, all of these assassinations, oh no, that's not an escalation of political violence. And you want to talk about the state legislatures in Minnesota being assassinated. I can call that a tragedy. I didn't cover it very much on my show. Oh yeah, Sanglant, the baseball game in Washington. Yeah. Yeah. You're playing fucking politics, man. And thinking we're just going to let that slide. Like it's all Donald Trump's fault. Thing that says, I bet my last dollar it was one of Nancy Pelosi's friends that knew she was into it. Oh yeah, there you go. The Paul Pelosi crap too. Yeah. There are so many things, and we as a culture are ready to grab every one of these tragedies and utilize them for every political point we can use. And I admit, I just did it. I just did it too. I'm just as guilty as everyone else. But for every act of violence, we want blood as Americans. I'm calling for peace. I'm trying to tell you far leftist, you trans activists, you BLM people, you Antifa people, you keep using the punch Nazis narrative. You make more Nazis than you punch. And with every one of these actions, with every one of these streets of ours that get dangerous, you turn more of us into supporters of fascism. And like I said, I'm using the term fascism because that's the language you use. But we want law and order. We want order on our streets. We want nonviolence on our streets. We want peace on our streets. We're conservatives. We want to be left the fuck alone. I want to be able to tune into my buddy's podcast. Hey, you all can have The View. You all can have Stephen Colbert. You can have whatever the fuck you want as long as you're paying for it. Go cut your dick off as long as it's your kids and you're the ones paying for it. Leave my kids alone. Leave my kids out of it and keep them out of my bathrooms. Just leave us the fuck alone. You do what you want in your own weird communities, in your own bars, in your own coffee shops. Go ahead and plaster the rainbow out front so we know which ones to avoid. We'll just live in that segregated society. You leave us alone. We leave you alone. And you quit calling us fascists. You quit calling us dictators. You quit calling us Nazis. Because the more you keep doing that and saying, well, that's justification for what I'm about to do to you, and then you send the crazies on the streets, and you send the whacked out crackheads and junkies who think that the reason they're dirt poor, the reason that they're facing poverty and homelessness is because of white men, because some Wall Street executive happens to have the same skin color as I do. And then, that person pulls out a knife and just starts stabbing white people, like what happened on the train in Charlotte. We want to be left the hell alone. And that's not leaving us the hell alone. And either we all become Nazis, we all become fascists and take matters into our own hands and escalate exactly what J.B. Prickster is talking about here. We all start taking matters into our own hands. I don't fucking want that. Or we give more power to an already overgrown government establishment. We give more power to idiots like Prickster here, or Donald Trump, or your own local government. And that's what we've done for 20 years is, here, we'll give you more money, cops. We'll vote for our local police departments to grow. Here, they take all the military surplus. Here, have tanks. Oh, look, our local police department needs more assault weapons. Here, have more assault weapons, local police department. Do anything. Just save us from the violent maniacs and the pedophiles who want to touch our children. It's not working. It's not working. And a powder keg is building. And people are taking matters into their own hands. And it's causing this political divide to grow. Until people are fed up on both sides taking up arms. And don't get me wrong. Even if it's not politically, overtly political, there was the guy in Kansas City last month. Or was that Kansas City? Where was that? No, it was last year in Kansas City. The guy who shot some black kid coming to his door. Said the guy had the wrong address, thought it was his buddy's house. And the guy just literally, you knocked on my door, you're dead. And then there was the Ding Dong Ditch kid a week ago. You knocked on my door, you're dead. It's a death sentence. I don't want that. I don't like that. I'm not a supporter of that. Those kids should be alive. Shaban says everything's falling apart, but things are also coming together in some ways too. Yes. And the prayers, yes. But this idea that it's all January 6th, it's all Donald Trump, or as we saw in the other clip, oh, it's the political environment now, and Charlie Kirk is just as responsible. The man was the literal embodiment of the call for dialogue and debate, the antithesis to political violence. The opposite of violence is dialogue and debate. And you blame him for his own death. You blame him for the environment and the culture which brought about the circumstances by which some person. Now again, I could be totally wrong about this, but I'm reacting to these people. I'm reacting to these people on the news, this governor, this MSNBC reporter. I'm reacting to these people on Twitter. For all I know, that, like I said, this could be the deep state. This could be a foreign government. This could all be an op. If they want to talk about the political climate, I'll talk about the political climate. The political climate is one in which you don't want the race war. You don't want the political war. You commies think you can handle a hot war. I'm asking for peace. I'm asking to be left the hell alone. I'm asking for the next Charlie Kirk who steps up and walks onto a college campus and steps in front of a microphone and asks somebody to have a conversation with them. Let the conversation happen. Words aren't bullets. But this goes to show you that words are more dangerous to the devil than any bullet ever will be. Second says it isn't their idea, but the point was to get them shot. Oh, and then the second says it wasn't knocking, they were trying to kick the door down. Yeah, I mean, obviously there was false media narratives and all that around them. Anyway. What are we at? Almost 6:30? This hits me so hard. This hits me so hard because, like I said, you just want to be left the hell alone. But instead, the far left, and even the rest of the left, right? The rest of the left have placated these people because they're afraid of them too. They're afraid to go against the rest of the left too. Because what happens when you go against the rest of the left? You pay. You pay dearly. Because there is no tactic, no amount of violence, no amount of... I mean, look at what's happening. What J.K. Rowling has to deal with on a daily basis. The death threats. The constant disruption of her business. Because she has a belief that they don't agree with. Words that disrupt the sins these people live in. When they tell you words are violence, when they use terms like hate speech, understand. Those are the demons in them saying, hey, man, their faith is killing me. hey man, the common sense that their Christian beliefs, that their moral beliefs they hurt my sin, man. They've taken my way of life and weaponized it against me. And that hurts. That's painful. My sin is dying. And I hate to get biblical and religious. And I hate to say that the political divide is some sort of battle of God. But responding to words with violence and saying it's justified because your words are violence. There's something happening under the surface there. There's something happening on the spiritual level in the souls of these hateful, crybaby people. I'm not a super religious or super spiritual man. Dear God, I do not come on this stream and open up my Bible and pump God at you folks. I never do that. But dear Lord, when I open up my social media and I see the types of things people are saying and justifying, and claiming they're doing so out of fear of what conservatives are doing, when the things conservatives are doing are having a debate, promoting pro-life agendas, and saying, hey, we need to draw the line at gender ideology being pumped into our kids' consciousness every single day. Shaban says, amen. Stop posting about my sins with your opinions. Exactly. You're not going to sit here and get me to just say trans people are all evil. Trans people are all, immoral and losing their souls and they're all going to die and rot in hell, and gay people along with them. And, you're not going to get me to sit here and say things like that, because in my heart, I don't believe that. I believe people can be misguided. I believe that there's a good number of them that have good intentions in their heart and have bought into the new society, the new world order, so to speak. And we're all tempted. We're all tempted with sexuality and addiction, and we're all tempted with popularity and ego. And I think there's definitely a number of folks out there who, yeah, they're literally they're just gay or they're just trans. But the idea that there's not predators among you, I'm willing to say, as a libertarian, there's lots of predators among me. There's lots of predators among conservatives, lots of predators among libertarians. In fact, here locally, someone who literally would never call the police, never. Someone I knew once who was fundamentally against ever having contact with the police, ever, had to get a restraining order against someone else in our circle, our group of friends, because that individual saw women in the libertarian movement. Oh, you don't like government? Well, you won't call the government on me. And was stalking people and being very inappropriate. And invading people's boundaries and space, and when told, hey, you are not wanted at my home, and still came to these people's homes. Now, granted, the libertarian thing to do would have been, be strapped and ready. But there was a restraining order. I know there's predators among us. There's predators in every group. There's psychos in every group. There's extremists who might turn to violence in every group, in every ideology. But dear God, if Charlie Kirk takes a bullet to the neck, literally, as he's pointing out the frequency at which a certain segment of individuals have these psychotic breaks and commit acts of terror and violence in the name of their ideology and their identity, and loses his entire existence. Not just him, but his family lost his existence. The world lost the gift. And again, I don't agree with Charlie Kirk on everything, but the idea of someone going to these institutions that are supposed to be institutions of learning and debate, they're supposed to be institutions of education, and challenging these young people to grow into the adults they're going to be. The idea that Charlie Kirk would take that idea and utilize it to project the message of traditionalism and faith and conservatism and patriotism. That was a gift to us, to humanity, to the United States of America, to Christians. I'm losing viewers. Oh well. One psycho out there cost Charlie Kirk his life, but it also cost conservatism. It cost the world a very important I don't even know to say political figure is really, on the one hand it's overblowing it, on the other hand it's underselling it. I'm not going to sit here and act like Charlie Kirk was some sort of saint and we now have to talk of him in some eternal reverence, plaster him on every wall as a martyr, although I've seen that take on Twitter. You guys, he's not a martyr. We don't have to make him the symbol of our movement, just like we don't need to make Irina, the Ukrainian girl, the symbol of our movement. Is there anything new? We got Benny Johnson talking about him. The left talking about gun violence. This is crazy violence. I don't want to hear it. The gun didn't do anything. The gun had its trigger pulled. Everyone posting their tributes finally. I think it's finally just set into people that it's huh. Here's Laura Loomer posting that TMZ was cheering the news.
So I would think that that's one of the main reasons they're holding this news conference. So my guess is we're going to see an image of this guy possibly in the next 20 minutes. The news conference is scheduled for 3 o'clock in Utah time, which is 2 o'clock Pacific.
I don't know,
5
Laura
o'clock
Loomer.
Eastern.
They could be cheering a lot of different things.
Janet, go to have somebody look at the Fox. Trump just posted that Charlie Kirk is dead.
All right, so is this ready to pull the trigger? We can get Trump cut in a second.
Okay, they could be cheering a lot of different things. I doubt they would be cheering because this obviously took place way after the shooting. I don't think that could be a number of things. Laura Loomer, like we need to not do that. Like that's what we need to not do is jump to conclusions and say, oh, look, everything everyone is saying is a celebration and therefore disgusting because we don't know that they are actually celebrating that. There are a lot of people in this country. I'm doing a 2-hour live stream on the guy's death, and a lot of conservatives are taking this time to grieve. But not everyone was a Charlie Kirk fan. Not everyone was blessed with Charlie Kirk on their timeline on a regular basis. And there are a lot of Americans who have a lot to cheer for this week. I mean, all kinds of people in their NFL teams and, a lot of people getting good news about sports injuries today because today the injury reports came out for the week after, a tough week of football for a lot of people. There are a lot of reasons people have to celebrate today that have nothing to do with the passing of Charlie Kirk. And again, okay, I'm going back to Laura Loomer again because I have to point the finger when it's on the conservative side. I have to point the finger at ourselves. Here's Laura Loomer again. Barack Obama saying we don't yet know what motivated this person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk. This kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy. Michelle and I will be praying for the Kirk family tonight, especially his wife Erica and their 2 young children. That's a very kind, respectful post. He does say we don't yet know what motivated the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk. And I said earlier, I'm making an assumption. Could be a lot of reasons. But 99% chance, to me, it's somebody who's mad about the things Charlie Kirk said. And then Laura Loomer goes off and says, oh, it's a radical left like you. Laura Loomer, let's not go around blaming Barack Obama. We can blame a lot of things on Barack Obama. Let's not go around blaming Barack Obama for a murder that happened today. Nowhere near Barack Obama, nowhere near Barack Obama. Here's something that was reposted that's interesting in context. Charlie Kirk. Assassination culture is spreading on the left. 48% of liberals say it would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk. 55% said the same about Donald Trump. In California, activists are naming ballot measures after Luigi Mangione. The left is being whipped into a violent frenzy. Any setback, whether losing an election or court case, justifies a maximally violent response. This is a natural outgrowth of left-wing protest culture tolerating violence and mayhem for years on end. The cowardice of local prosecutors and school officials have turned the left into a ticking time bomb. Yeah. And we want to be left alone. Elon Musk. They won't leave us in peace, then our choice is to fight or die. Again, a lot of people are ready to take a defensive posture here. People saying they hope MSNBC and CNN get sued. I didn't see a CNN clip. Oh, let's see. Here's a CNN clip. Scott Jennings. Let's do this. Shaban says, "Watch now, my iPad's going to die plugged in." Oh no, not the iPod or iPad. Well, we've only got 15 minutes left of the show, and then I'm going to be wrapping up fairly soon here. Let's check out this this Scott Jennings clip here.
And I'll be honest with you, I am in utter disbelief at this. I sat in this room last summer, the night they shot the president, and now they shot Charlie. And I'm not sure it's safe to be an outspoken conservative walking around in America right now. And there's a lot of people out there who are in absolute shock and are horrified by this. And I don't know what's going to happen other than to tell you that this nation is in desperate need of prayer and some kind of an intervention, because when you can't, I mean, what was Charlie doing? Making a speech, engaging in rhetoric, having a debate. That's the bedrock of our nation. And now you can't go out in public and engage in speech. It's the opposite of violence. Speech is the opposite.
Exactly what I said.
And so I don't know what's going to happen to Charlie. All I can really think about is his poor wife and those two babies. And so I think the best thing any of us can do right now is just pray for his recovery and pray for their comfort, because God help us, we're in a bad place.
Okay. I want to touch back on this idea that speech is the opposite of violence. The reason we as conservatives, the reason we as patriots, the reason we as red-blooded Americans believe that speech is the opposite of violence is because speech is actually not the opposite of violence. Speech is step one. The actual opposite of violence is step zero. The opposite of violence is just shutting your fucking mouth and taking it, you motherfucker, right? The opposite of violence is being a victim, being prey. The opposite of violence, the actual opposite of violence is being a pacifist. When being a pacifist, when being left the hell alone no longer works, step one is speech. Step two is organizing. Step three is mobilizing. And then eventually, both sides are violent. Charlie Kirk was step one. He saw poison in our culture. He couldn't be a pacifist. He couldn't just ignore the atrocities around him. He couldn't just ignore that morals and beliefs and behaviors, like they're not just a fad. They've become a cultural poison. And he had to speak out about it. He did the opposite of just taking it. Because, folks, what happens when you just take it? What happens when you don't speak out? What happens when you don't stand up? What happens when you don't at least vocalize your opposition? Well, what's happening in Europe right now? What's happening in Canada right now? What's happening in Australia right now? For years, all the countries, and I know Europe's not a country, but all of the countries of Europe and Canada and Australia, they were too polite, too nice. And we're always told, oh, you must hate gay people. You know, you must, like How are they hurting you? You know, show me on the doll where the gay person hurt your life. It's not about that. It's about if you stay silent when they take a little bit of your culture, then you stay silent when they take a little more of your culture. Then when half of your culture is gone and people are being jailed, like the guy was jailed in the UK for making a joke. These people want to call us fascists. Speaking up, doing what Charlie Kirk devoted his life, his career, his fortune to do. Using your voice, debate. The reason why it's the opposite of violence is because if you take step 0, you take pacifism and passivism, while people are taking from you, you will have nothing left. That's how fascism rises. And unfortunately, debate, conversations, warning our government didn't work under the Biden administration. So we vocalized, we organized, we put Trump in charge. And yeah, a little bit of violence has to happen in order to clean up our communities, because the violence is unacceptable. The putting the feelings of migrants above law and order has become unacceptable. The idea that we as Americans need to be divided amongst ourselves while being welcoming to outsiders and welcoming to other religions. But we're supposed to be angry at other Christians. We're supposed to be angry at other Americans. We're supposed to be angry as a white dude at the black dude that lives down the street. Because some crackhead, probably immigrant somewhere, stabs somebody. I say nay. I just want my government to have law and order, and I want my mainstream media to quit dividing my community, to quit trying to poke the infighting, to quit trying to divide and conquer my people. Sorry. Keep fucking kicking my desk because looky here. Again, don't harass any of these people, please. Charlie Kirk isn't a martyr. He's a casualty of the violence he incited. I think it's worth it. Have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so we can have a Second Amendment to protect other God-given rights. Yes. And here's what I'll say. I don't blame the gun today. And all the lawful Americans who own a firearm, you are not to blame for the disgusting, horrific tragedy that happened September 10th, 2025. So here we go. I had other news topics in my bookmarks. I was going to talk about Irina Arutska, or whatever her name is. Fuck, I can't ever remember her last name. Irina, the tragic passing, the violent attack on the Ukrainian immigrant just trying to go to work. just trying to be literally leaving everyone else alone and trying to be left alone on the train and losing her life for daring to be a woman with light colored skin in a big city in America. I was really gonna give a little, peaceful prayer to people out there. Saying like says the people coming up with the online challenges are trying to get people killed. Yeah. But that's just it. Internet fads. Everyone wants to jump on the next internet fad and be the first person to say something, and that's where a lot of this comes from. The New York Yankees. Before tonight's game, we held a moment of silence in memoriam of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk founded the youth activist group Turning Point USA and become a fixture on college campuses. Shout out to the New York Yankees. That's classy. Oh, man. How do I wrap this up? We've got 4 minutes left, and let me just. First off, Saturday's show, I may have to go on early. I may have to do an early show Saturday. Things may have to be moved around. I have an event I need to attend. So keep an eye on that social media. I'm flirting with the idea of noon Central. So links are down in the description to all the social media. I'm really flirting with the idea that I'm going to go live around noon, and we'll see what news stories come in the next few days. I probably will touch a little bit on the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination. If they reveal who the assassin was, then I will definitely try to address that. And it's just this whole situation is stunning. As someone who literally espouses conservative views on the internet, I'm not necessarily trying to say what Scott Jennings is saying is that it's dangerous to be a conservative in America. It kind of is, and it's kind of scary. Now, I don't think I'm ever going to be visible enough to meet the fate Charlie Kirk met, but anymore, you don't have to be Charlie Kirk. You could be Irina Erutska. Someone could just assume that because you're white, you're a threat to them. Or someone could just assume that because you have, I don't know, don't tread on me on your bumper, that you're a threat to them and commit an act of violence. So yeah, this is a hard show to do. I definitely wanted to be as careful as I could. That line letting you folks know that no, this is the time for peace. This is the time for reminding the crazy left that we just want to be left the hell alone. We don't want violence. We don't want a civil war. We want to be left the hell alone. And if they continue this provocation, we have to defend ourselves. Shaban says, thank you for the show. Bisu bisu. Mwah. Thank you for coming by. I always love seeing your name in the chat. You're amazing. You're amazing. Everyone who came into the chat, you're all amazing. Thank you for stopping by. Those of you who've been listening on demand or audio only, cheers to you folks. Since you didn't come into the chat, first off, please do come into the chat. And we now have Rumble Creator Program giving us the stat for unique chatters that we have to meet every month. And so even if you just come into the chat and say one word, say hello, I'll try not to highlight it as much as I usually do. We didn't quite get to ad read audience, but we got a decent size audience today. But yeah, next time, try to come into the chat. But yeah, I'll probably be back most likely noon on Saturday. I would say same bat time, same bat channel, but it's a different time. But it'll be right here on Mild's Culture Plate. Links to social media down in the description. Keep an eye on there Saturday afternoon to find out when I'm going to go live. And what am I forgetting? I'm forgetting something. Just cheers to everybody. I love y'all, man. You make it worth it. You make it worth doing this. Even when I'm frustrated with Rumble and not making money. Oh, I accidentally closed my window. Anyway, cheers and welcome all around. That's what I was doing. I was trying to open another tab and accidentally closed the one I had open for Rumble Studio. I was looking for someone to raid here as we get ready to wrap up the show because we're now across the hour. Who do we have live here? Handy News is live. I think I'll send you to Handy News. All right, folks. I'll see you Saturday. Until next time, please. Oh yeah, click the that's what I forgot. I forgot the thumbs up. Click that thumbs up. Hit the like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. If you're new here, please feel free to watch a second video somewhere on my channel. Feel free to check out my gaming stream. Probably going to be going live on my gaming stream. I'm debating. I'm thinking it's going to be Diablo 4 Monday, 5 p.m. So yeah, it's 5 p.m. Central, 6 Eastern, and that's usually when we go live. But noon Central, that'd be 1 o'clock Eastern this Saturday. Keep an eye out for me then. Until next time, folks, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Outlast those haters. We didn't do a fuck around and find out moment. I have one queued up, but hey, I got heavily focused on this one topic because it's important. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Outlast those haters and the assassins. Don't get any on you. And if you do, rub that shit in real good. I'll catch you next time on Mild's Culture Plate, folks. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I'll see you this weekend. Good night.